So today we're going to unpack a really fascinating paradox. When you think of the Netherlands, you probably picture a near-perfect society, right? A model for the rest of the world. But what if I told you that gleaming image hides a deep, widespread struggle? Turns out the story's way more complex than it looks on the surface. I mean, think about it. The Netherlands consistently tops the charts as one of the wealthiest, most stable, and, yeah, happiest nations on the entire planet. By pretty much every official metric, it's a massive global success story. But here's the twist. Behind that postcard perfect image, more than 1 million people are quietly wrestling with financial strain. They're definitely not living that idyllic Dutch dream that we've all heard about.
Which just begs the question, how can a country be so successful on paper, yet have so many of its own citizens feeling so squeezed? Let's dive in and break it down.
Okay, so first up, let's look at why the Netherlands has this incredible, almost flawless reputation. What exactly does the official story tell us? And, the official story is incredibly compelling because the success is just so complete. You've got a super strong welfare state, highly productive workers, amazing infrastructure, and basically zero corruption. All of this adds up to one of the highest qualities of life anywhere in the world. It really is an impressive picture. Yeah, and this quote just nails it. If you were going to design the ideal capitalist society from the ground up, it would probably look a whole lot like the Netherlands. It seems like they've solved all the big problems. All right, but now it's time to pull back the curtain. Because behind that perfect image, there are some numbers that paint a very, very different and much more complicated picture. Over 1 million people. Just let that sink in for a second. In a nation of just under 18 million, that is a staggering figure. So this isn't some fringe issue. It's a widespread reality that just completely flies in the face of that image of universal prosperity. And this is where that paradox just snaps into focus. The national image, the brand, is all about high GDP and a strong safety net. But the reality for over 1 million people is a constant battle, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to deal with insane housing costs, and getting hammered by rising prices for absolute essentials like food and energy. And this is such a crucial point. We're not talking about deep, abject poverty in the way you might traditionally think of it. No, this is about a lack of financial freedom. It's that feeling of being stuck on a treadmill. You're safe, you're not going to fall off, but you just can't seem to get ahead. So what gives? How did this happen? Well, the answer lies in a really fundamental choice the country made a long time ago, a massive trade-off that sits right at the very core of its social contract. The first part of this trade-off sounds amazing, right? The Dutch system is basically engineered for maximum security. It feels like there are safety nets absolutely everywhere, ready to catch you if you stumble in your career, your health, or your personal life. But, and here's the other side of that coin, those same systems, the ones funded by high taxes and managed by heavy regulation, create this kind of gravity. It makes significant upward mobility, getting truly wealthy or building something huge from scratch, way, way more difficult. And that, right there, is the heart of the whole thing. We can call it the great trade-off. The society has, as a whole, decided to prioritize stability over everything else. And in exchange for minimizing the risk of failure, it also minimizes the potential for huge success. It kind of flattens the curve at both ends. Okay, so what does this trade-off actually look like in day-to-day life? How does it actually influence the culture, especially when we're talking about work and ambition? Well, you can see how this focus on safety just shapes everything. Think about the famous Dutch part-time work model. It's all about prioritizing life balance over just maximizing your income. Career paths are usually super stable and comfortable, but that career ladder, it often doesn't go quite as high. And all this creates a general aversion to risk. The whole system encourages you to play it safe, not to make big, bold bets. Wow, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The greatest strength of the Dutch system, its incredible safety, can also become a kind of lid, a ceiling on your aspiration. It's comfortable, for sure, but that comfort can end up limiting your potential. So all of this adds up to a really unique social feeling. It's not your typical story of the super rich versus the super poor. The emotional landscape here is much more subtle than that. And this comparison is so key to understanding it. On one hand, you just don't see the extremes. There's very little visible poverty, but there's also very little flashy over-the-top wealth. But instead, what you feel, What's simmering right under the surface is this constant, widespread pressure from the high cost of living. It's this shared financial tension that affects almost everyone. And that's just the perfect way to put it. This isn't a crisis of desperation. It's a climate of tension. It's the feeling that you're working really hard just to stand still, even in one of the richest countries in the world. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, it's really important to look at this the right way. This isn't about labeling the Dutch system as a success or a failure. It's about understanding it as a choice that has real consequences. So here's the main takeaway. The current situation isn't some accident or a flaw in the system. It is the intended outcome of the system. The Netherlands deliberately chose predictable stability over the unpredictable highs and lows of volatility. And the pressure people are feeling today, that is a direct consequence of that choice. And that leaves us with a final and I think most important question. The system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, but the world has changed. So the real question for the Dutch and for all of us watching is this: is the trade-off that worked for yesterday still the right one for tomorrow?